Today is September 27, 2023. My name is Rob Carr of Kalamazoo Right to Life, and this is Pro-Life Week. Well, my topic today revolves around an article I read on the pro-life website lifenews.com, and the headline said, "World underpopulation crisis is so bad, nations desperately urge women to have more babies." I know back in the mid-1970s, I believe, China instituted this draconian one-child policy that demanded or required or prohibited women from having more than one child. And if a married couple got pregnant for a second child, the government would force that woman into an abortion. And as a consequence, hundreds of millions of babies were aborted in China from the mid-70s until about 5 years ago, when the Chinese government finally realized that their population was aging rapidly, and there were not enough young people to come along to provide for their elderly parents or grandparents. So the light bulb came on, and they finally realized, boy, did we make a big mistake. And now they're encouraging, with I believe even some monetary incentives, to encourage young women to have children because of that 50-year short-sighted policy. And they're not alone. In places, in most countries in Europe, the birth rate is well below 2.1, which is what you need to just replace the people who are currently living and who will be passing away. You need to be able to replace your aging population. And in Italy, I should say, in the most recent issue of World Magazine, it's a great magazine, great Christian magazine, there's an article about the situation with the declining birth rate in the country of Italy. And the article features a young married couple who got married in their late 20s and have 2 children. But the article says that the average age for women getting married is closer to their mid to late 30s and not having their children until about the age of 40, if they're going to have children at all. And so this young couple is currently out of the mainstream in Italy when it comes to children, marriage, having having a family, just those basics for society to thrive. And the article said that if by the year 2050, if this trend in Italy has not been reversed, the average age in Italy will be 75. Now, you cannot have a sustainable society if your average age is 75 years old. Everybody's going to be in retirement. Who's going to be providing that social safety net, retirement, health benefits for this older generation that is going to be the dominant age demographic? They're all either being aborted or they're just not having children at all. And I thought about this in the context of a verse in Proverbs 14:12, that says, "There is a way that seems right to a man, but its end is the way of death." And we've all seen in our culture, since the late 60s, when the feminist movement began demanding abortion rights, and the Supreme Court followed along and gave us Roe v. Wade, and we had 50 years of legal abortion. 64 million babies were aborted during that 50-year period from 73 to 2023. And what happened here is we had a whole generation who fell into this narcissistic viewpoint that the world revolved around them. And their happiness, their fulfillment was the most important thing in life. And if a woman became pregnant, or there was an unwanted pregnancy in this situation, the solution was not to face up to your responsibility. You made a mistake, you live with the mistake, and you bring that child into the world, you raise it or you put it up for adoption, but you're the responsible adult in the room. And if you've made a mistake, you face it as an adult. But no, many people in our current generation want to just erase that mistake in the form of an abortion, because they want to continue in this lifestyle. They want to go on with this idea that the world revolves around them and their happiness is all that matters. My choice, my rights. I talked before about, in Greek mythology, Narcissus, this Greek person who saw himself in a pool, in a pond of water, clear water, and he fell in love with his reflection. And I think he stayed there till he died, because he was so enamored with how he looked that he never left the pond, and he died there. Well, so many people in today's culture are in that same situation, that all the rights are for me, they're not for anybody else. So if a baby is in the picture, that baby is in the way. It is just in the way. And I see that as going back to this verse in Proverbs, but its way is the way, but the end is the way of death. And these nations like China and Europe, they're beginning to realize, especially China, they're beginning to realize that we have made a horrible mistake by not allowing husbands and wives to have families of more than one child. And now they're reaping the whirlwind. And it's just a tragic situation that we as a society have allowed ourselves to get into. And it's really not too late to get back onto what God called for in the Garden of Eden back in Genesis, where he said, be fruitful and multiply. I'm not saying you got to have 10 or 15 kids. I'm not saying that. But if you at least had 2 children at that replacement level, at least you're carrying on the demographic of society. So I'm gonna close with this. But we see time and again that when man tries to usurp God's best for our lives, we make a mess. We make an absolute and total mess of things. But if we follow God's word, God's ordinances, God's laws, like laws of nature, you might say, we are blessed, we are in his will, and we are at right with God and with our fellow man. And children are a blessing to the world, to families, to society. They are a blessing. With that, I will let you go, and I will see you next time.